Hello, everyone, and welcome into Thinking About DFS. Davis Mattek and Jakob Sanderson with you, the NFL DFS game-by-game preview here on the show. Not a particularly banner week last week, Jacob, as the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray just could not find a way to generate any points. The CJ Stroud stuff did not quite get there. Couple bites at the apple, just didn't get it all together in one lineup. It just had, too much of like Najee here, not the right running back there. I don't know how you feel. I feel much better about my process this year. Like I feel like my lineups are directionally accurate. I think we're circling around it.
Yeah, I've been like min cashing every week. So that's, I guess, nice to know. Not with particularly chalky lineups either. So I don't feel like that's the reason why that keeps happening. Just every week there's one or two plays that just go totally in the cellar and take it out of contention. Last week, I think the main issue was I just overstacked the Steelers. I went Fields and Najee with Pickens, where I should have just gotten Najee right out of there. Also played Barkley the 1 week that he didn't go completely nuclear after I finally capitulated and just said, all right, fine. I'll just play Saquon Barkley. And then they fall behind by 1 million points. So, it's my strategy of stack the team playing my favorite team every single week has gone pretty well consistently. But this will be the biggest test yet, whether or not I can bring myself. Like, what happens when Trevor Lawrence, who can't complete a pass, goes up against the horde of practice squad DBs known as the Fighting Gus Bradleys? We'll find out. Also, the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in 10 years. Did you know that?
That seems almost unbelievable. It seems almost I'm sure it is true, but it doesn't seem very true.
It's true.
All right.
It's a widely known curse exclusively among Colts fans that
the Colts fans are like, we cannot possibly get one over on this team, and then everyone else is like, I don't know, the Colts probably win that game. All right, let's get into it. And the first game this week is actually a pretty interesting one. The Carolina Panthers at the Chicago Bears. Revenge game for DJ Moore. Revenge game for Andy Dalton. I don't know how vengeful Andy Dalton feels about the Chicago Bears. What's interesting to me is that we just decided Deontay Johnson is basically prime Antonio Brown, effectively. Like, this is not a good defensive matchup. This is a low total game. The weather's not going to be very good here. It's just going to kind of be a scrappy, honestly, probably a poor quarterbacked game. I will say the DeAndre Swift thing last week, like not a chance in hell am I chasing the DeAndre Swift thing.
No. Basically, I would say that the last 4 weeks are a perfect encapsulation of DeAndre Swift and who he is. It's just that somehow he isolated all of the good plays into one game and then left only the bad plays for the other 3 games. Usually they're just spread out a little bit more evenly. But yeah, I don't think you can just go play DeAndre Swift into ownership potentially.
No, for sure in ownership. Their salary is a little bit tighter this week. Swift did not see a big increase. It's a very good running back matchup. Like, I would not be surprised if this is a spot where not playing the chalk cheap running back. Like, Swift is at least more explosive than the Cam Akers is, than the Najee Harris is. Like, this is the same play as Najee last week, effectively. But Swift can kill you on like 2 plays just because that is the style of player he is.
Sure, he can. But like, we also just saw him go 13 carries, 20 yards against the Colts. So he has that in his bag. Like, he is not unwilling to fall flat on his face in a terrific matchup.
Correct. What about DJ Moore? I think, let's say I make 3 single entry teams that I'm really going to care about. I think I'm going to try and
real revenge game.
I'm going to try and get more on at least one. His routes have been predictably bad, as you would expect from a Shane Waldron team, but he is also still clearly very good and can get open. Seems to be the only wide receiver also that Caleb doesn't have any rapport with Keenan or Rome. It feels like those passes are just a real choose your own adventure, whereas he is at least able to more consistently like actually complete passes to DJ Moore.
Are you concerned that DJ Moore doesn't appear to be happy about his current situation. Like
No, I
he
think
was sitting.
I think I would
Did you see the
be.
reports that he was sitting on the bench alone, isolated? Like he seems to be going on some sort of strike to bring back Justin Fields. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but that seems to be what I'm interpreting this as, is that it's maybe he's quiet quitting, as the people would say.
So you want some grade A cope? You want some really good DJ Moore cope?
I really do want some grade A DJ Moore cope. Also, apologies to the listeners. I am just as congested as I sound. So
he's doing his
apologies
best,
for
guys.
that.
He's doing his
Yes.
best. Here's your grade A, 10 out of 10, military grade fish scale cope. I would actually be more bummed out if DJ Moore was just happy to be playing like shitty losing football and him being like, guys, this sucks. We all need to play better. Caleb has to play better. Waldron has to be better. We all have to be better. I'm more on board with that.
All right.
There's your cope. There's your cope.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Lock him in.
All right. Next game, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of potential plays here. Chase.
Did we even discuss the Panthers side of that game, or should we just zoom right past?
Deontay Johnson and Chuba Hubbard are good plays. Deontay Johnson and Chuba Hubbard are good plays. I don't have anything.
Glad we covered that. Agreed.
They're honestly at this point, I think that just is what they are. The Panthers are like the 18th best offense in the NFL. Hubbard's getting all the high value touches, and Deontay Johnson is now the same player that he always was and is playing with a competent quarterback.
Totally agree. Chuba Hubbard's just actually a good running back. And it's
great in college.
I think certain guys just get pegged into certain roles by certain teams, and like somewhere along the line, the Panthers organizationally just deemed him to be a backup and kept replacing him unnecessarily. But I kind of hope a team lets him start for them next year. I think he can just flat out play. Yeah. Also, shout out Canada.
Shout out to Canada. All right, tons of potential plays here. One of the higher totals of the week. Although betting an over on an AFC North divisional game does seem a little fraught. This might be a first in the history of this program. I am going to be jamming T. Higgins. I'm going to be jamming T.
Wow.
Probably without Burrow. And I don't even love playing Lamar this week. I just don't love paying $7,500 for a quarterback like in this environment. Although historically, Lamar Jackson's greatest career play actually came in a game against the Cincinnati Bengals, like an unbelievable 47-yard touchdown run with like 2 jukes and a spin move, like a really unbelievable play. I'm very curious to see if the ownership on either Chase Brown or Zach Moss trends a little bit higher as we get to Sunday, because again, there really is not a ton of savings. They honestly, and they're kind of Detroit Lions-y, where there's so many high value touches to the backfield when they're playing well that I think at their salaries, you can get away with both of them. Chase would obviously be the Gibbs. Moss would be the Montgomery. I'm having a hard time right now wanting to play Zay Flowers with Lamar, because when things are going well for the Ravens, they've gone full 2021 Ravens, where it's like, we are not going to pass unless like it's 3rd and 11. We are just going to run the ball. But Lamar, T, Moss, and Brown all look strong.
I was going to go somewhat the opposite, but I'm conflicted on it because the Bengals are a team generally that they drop back in coverage. They kind of let you run if you want to run, and the Ravens usually would be happy to take that opportunity. All that being said, when they have had to pass this year, the Flowers role has been really good. Like the first 2 weeks, he looked like he was going to be crushing, and then has completely fallen off as they've
still top 10 targets per route run in the NFL.
Right. So when he's running around, when they're passing, his role's great. I do think that the Bengals, their offense has looked phenomenal the last 2 weeks since they got T. Higgins back in. So I do think that they're going to put up points in this spot and make the Ravens have to keep up pace with them. The issue is just if the Ravens are like slightly ahead, I do think they can really ride Henry in the spot from a matchup perspective. The path for Flowers probably means, the Bengals accept the opening kickoff. They go up 7-0. Maybe they get up 2 scores at some point, and then they have to pass, in which case I think Flowers has a really, really high ceiling at pretty low ownership in a spot where Henry is going to be soaking up far more ownership. So I do like Flowers. I admit that the floor is 0 in terms of if they just go full Henry, but Flowers is probably my favorite DFS play from the Ravens side. just from a stealing perspective. And then for the Bengals side, I agree with you on T. Higgins. Ravens have been a pass funnel for the most part this year. That's why I kind of struggle a little bit to get there with Zach Moss or Chase Brown, maybe more so with Brown since he's more explosive. But I think Chase and Higgins are very in play. And the annoying thing with the Bengals is just they don't do anything to scheme the ball to Jamar Chase, really. Like
absolutely nothing. Literally not one thing to make his life easier.
Like they're just so content which is like why it's so important that T. Higgins comes back, because when they were doing this and they had a bunch of nobodies outside of Chase, it was just really debilitating. At least now they have someone who can punish it. But their attitude is just, we would like to throw to Jamar Chase, but if you don't want us to, we'll just throw to T. Higgins. Like that's very much how they approach the thing. It's like Jamar Chase is the number one, but if you double him, we're not going to move him around. We're not going to get him in motion. We're not going to force it. We'll just throw to T. Higgins in single coverage instead. So you can get these games like we got last week where, you're like, why did I pay $2,000 more for the wide receiver who never gets a target when T. Higgins is just getting peppered?
I believe T has more targets in the last 2 games than Chase. I don't have the stats pulled up, but I believe that is true. I think I'm pretty interested in if playing this game is the rare AFC North game that goes over its total. I think likely at like legit single digits at 4,400. Because I feel like if you're going the Lamar tight end fancy play route, like just the name of Mark Andrews, like I would actually not be surprised to see Andrews more owned than likely on Sunday.
He probably will be, but you're likely is the better play. If Mark Andrews gets 30, I would love to see it. But not going to be in my DFS lineups. He's going to need to win back my trust over time. I think likely to play. Do you want to play their wide receiver 1 who has running back eligibility at Justice Hill?
If this was like a short slate or showdown or something, like it's just like Justice Hill can score 2 touchdowns in a game and get like 18 just because of the way he gets used. I would not be surprised actually if like Sims want to give you a little bit of Justice Hill on Sunday because he's so low owned and because other guys from this game are going to get so owned. But I think, especially in the contests I play, like the $100 single entry, the $50 single entry, it's only like 4,000 teams. So you just don't really need to give up that much in projection. Here's my Chase Brown thesis. I wonder if now that he's kind of proven to the staff that he can be dependable in like real games that matter. I wonder if actually in the tough games, Moss might get more total snaps because he's going to get long down and distance stuff. But I wonder if in these games they really need to win if Brown gets more touches than Moss, because in a game like this against the Ravens, you just are going to need a guy to get 17 yards out of nowhere. Like you're going to need some explosives. And I think the fantasy community is kind of hard on guys like Moss who just don't do anything really well, but kind of do everything okay. But like Brown actually, from like a game plan perspective, would make more sense to get the ball more here for me.
Agreed. I mean, especially in this matchup, right? You need the explosive plays because versus the Ravens front, 3 yards in a cloud of dust is going to be 1 yard in a cloud of dust. So you may as well swing for the fences. Chase Brown is hilarious, man. Just like, he does everything at 100 miles per hour. He got one toss to the outside where he got tackled, and then he just got up and he started sprinting at full speed like a crazy man like this.
He has like
so
negative.
Enjoyable.
He's got like negative vision, but man, if he gets through the hole, which is like, I don't know, I'd say probably he's got to be one of the worst running backs in the NFL doing it. It's like he's shot out of a cannon. I mean, it's really, it's really fun to watch.
Did you see the Scott Barrett tweet?
Mm-mm.
It's so funny that you said that without even knowing, but he just posted on Twitter like a bunch of everyone's tweets within 5 minutes of each other saying Chase Brown and shot out of a cannon. And there were like 8 different tweets. Like I said it, Gretsch said it. There was like a Bengals beat writer there. It's like a million other people, but it was just every person within like 5 minutes. Like, man, Chase Brown looks like he's shot out of a cannon. You just said it.
He leads the NFL in yards per carry, but doesn't have a run over 20 yards, which is like after a month of football is like kind of insane. It's pretty impressive. All right, another great game. Actually, I think this game ends up being better for fantasy, the Buffalo Bills of the Houston Texans, because the Bills have gotten far too comfortable just running the ball. And I think we saw in that Ravens game, they're pretty uncomfortable being down 10 points because their plan this season was not to be a pass-heavy team. Although I cannot get over that trick play call. I mean, that's
so
like
bad.
me in NCAA 25. I'm down 10 points in the college football playoff game with like Boise State. I'm up against Texas and I call the double reverse pass. And it's just like, enough, dude. It was unnecessary. However.
Yeah, they had the momentum. They have Josh Allen. Stop it.
Truly insane. All right. Very heavy team total. The Bills, by the way, road favorites here, which is very interesting. I would not have expected that to begin the year. Allen, very interesting because he's going to be less owned than Lamar. Nico, I mean, obviously everyone's good. Nico should be like $9,000. He has the most valuable. Yeah, he's got the most him and Jefferson have the most valuable wide receiver role, but the Texans throw the ball more often than the Vikings do. Stroud, I will be going back to Stroud doubles this week. Diggs in the revenge game. Cook, very strong play. I think you can get away with Shakir. I definitely think you can play Tank Dell.
He might not play also. He seems pretty legitimately questionable.
So if Shakir doesn't play, does that make us more into Kincaid? Does that mean Keon Coleman is a GPP play? Does that mean Curtis Samuel?
Makes Curtis Samuel get ready to learn 17% owned Curtis Samuel, buddy. I think is what it means.
Yeah. I'd be out if he does project like that. But if he projects at like 8% with Shakir out, I could do a little bit of that. I probably would side towards Kincaid. And I don't even think you need to do a bring back if you do Stroud, Diggs, Dell, Stroud, Nico, Diggs, like whatever permutation. I'll say the same thing I said when we did this show when the Texans played Minnesota. Stefan Diggs is a player who is in Joe Brady's ear this week saying, if I don't get the ball 8 times against the Bills, you better not show up to work on Monday, buddy. Like Stefan Diggs against the Minnesota Vikings had 3 targets on their first 2 drives. So that means they're scripted plays. Yeah. I bet my bottom dollar on the same exact thing happening here.
I agree. And he's also been good this year. I think it's gone a little under the radar because Nico has obviously been better, but Diggs has been quite consistent. He has a role for them. I think that our new thinking about DFS, say the line bar, is Tank Dell now. He's the new Jalen Waddle of the show, where it's just every week you'd be like, well, you
and everyone's over him.
By spending down for Tank Dell. And I will. Let me tell you that. I will be playing Tank Dell every week until he finally gets there.
I mean, people are sick of him right now in battle royales on Underdog, which is kind of how it's actually a great way to prep for the DFS slate, just to get a sense of what people are thinking. I mean, dude, he's going after like Michael Pittman Jr. I believe he is the 27th wide receiver being selected in these contests right now. It's just like no one cares. Everyone is completely over Tank Dell. So yeah, I might even prefer doing Nico, Stroud, and Dell if I'm doing the double. I'm about ready to declare Dalton Kincaid to be the new Kyle Pitts in the sense of we keep wanting it to happen, and then we keep finding reasons. Oh, the game was weird. You know, he's just they tried to get him going, but he couldn't quite get going. Like we're a month into the season. He did score a touchdown, so shout out to him for scoring a touchdown. But he had 59% of the routes in a game they trailed from the first drive. Like it's not the profile of a guy I want to pay $5,300 for on DraftKings.com.
No, absolutely not. And it's certainly not the profile of a guy I want to pay that price tag for at ownership, which he projects to have. So, yeah, I think if I was going to play, like if you're going to play Josh Allen, what would be your stacking partner? Like if Shakir plays and he gets on a full practice, it would be I think he's fine.
It would be either.
But I think you could also just do James Cook.
Could do Cook. You could just do him naked. There's no reason if he like this is it's almost like kind of like how Mahomes used to do this. Mahomes' 2021 season or the first season after they traded Tyreek, where he would have these 4 touchdown games where like Noah Gray caught one, the backup left tackle caught one, Kelsey caught one, but only had 67 yards, and McKinnon caught one, and none of them would be close to optimal, but Mahomes would be the highest scoring quarterback of the slate.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. You could do it that way. The only other one I'd bring up is, I think you could go Allen and Cook. That obviously gets pretty expensive, but then you could come with Dells to bring back, and then that's where you get your savings in.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game. We have your fighting Indianapolis Colts traveling
That's 2-2, baby,
to play at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I'll just say this right now. I will be losing money on Travis Etienne this week. There's not really a power that could keep me off of playing him. He will be like not owned. Tank Bigsby will have more rushing yards than him. The Jaguars are going to end up losing this game. It's going to end up being terrible, but I don't know. The Colts do give it up to every running back other than Najee Harris.
Yeah, I think that they've actually changed how they run their defense the last 2 weeks. So they were getting absolutely gashed on the run, and then they lost more corners. Like their secondary started the year bad, but it's gotten worse. They lost Juju Brents, and then now they've lost Kenny Moore. And the shift that they've made the last 2 weeks to be mildly successful, at least in the first half, is they're basically just run blitzing on every 1st and 10, like borderline running in gauge 8, and basically just praying that the other team is called a run. And like if the other team is called a pass, whatever, then we lose. But if they've called a run, we're going to get a stop, and then we're going to hope that we can manage to play CFL defense on 2 downs from there. It's kind of the vibe. And I think that's basically just because they know they can't hold up in pass coverage even if they do drop back. Like Najee Harris got absolutely nothing last week. And then really when the Steelers started playing was like they had a -11 PROE against 2 practice squad cornerbacks. And then once they fell behind, they just had to pass. Then they just moved the ball at will. So I kind of think that they've somewhat figured out the run defense. I don't think that the pass defense is fixable. I think that that's just the personnel is just too bad. So I think you can certainly play ETN because the defense is just bad generally. But where I'll be going is where I've gone every single week of the season, which is quarterback, wide receiver against the Colts. Brian Thomas is going to have an insane game. He is going to be on the outside against just deeply overmatched bums. I cannot imagine any lineup that I play this week does not feature Brian Thomas Jr. He's looked completely dominant. He's fast. He's large. The Colts have corners that probably wouldn't start for a majority of USFL teams. Their names are Sam Womack, Jalen Jones, and Chris Lamons right now. Good luck. I'll be playing Thomas, and I'm even brave enough to stack it with Trevor Lawrence. You don't have to do that. You don't have to hate yourself as much as I do, but that's what I'm going to be doing.
You know, I like the idea. I think ultimately I probably will just not include Lawrence as part of it, and I'll just use a little bit of Brian Thomas Jr. there. I'll use a little bit of Christian Kirk here, maybe. We will see if our boy Evan Ingram is able to get back. He's priced at $4,600. Pretty cromulent price actually for his role. So this is fascinating. Trey Sermon is $5,700. Jonathan Taylor is not going to play. Trey Sermon is going to have a lock on the goal line stuff. He probably will play most of the passing downs. Goodson will come in a little bit. If his name was anything other than Trey Sermon, like if this was just an undefined player, it was just running back 2 on the Colts, we didn't have any baggage or history with Trey Sermon, he would be the chalk of the week. You know, but this is a guy who has never topped 89 rushing yards. He's got 2 NFL touchdowns, one of them coming, was it last week or the week before when Richardson pushed him into the end zone. He runs with a piano on his back. I was really not preparing to say this, but if Trey Sermon is legitimately less than 10% owned, I think he is just a pretty clear play. I don't know if I imagine that projected ownership will come up, but I don't know. You're more familiar with what this role might be.
I think it's going to be a bit more of a split maybe than anticipated. But we don't have much of a sample on this. They've only played basically a half, where last year there was no Taylor and no Moss. And it was like a 65-35 type split in that situation between Sermon and Goodson. But again, that was a half. I think that Sermon plays the passing downs now because it's the only downs that Taylor doesn't play is like 3rd and 10, basically. He plays everything else. So that's what Sermon plays, and he's the RB2. But I think Goodson might play more of that this week, and then Sermon plays kind of probably a better role than like Cam Akers has had the last couple of weeks. But I don't think he's going to have the Jonathan Taylor role. That's I feel pretty confident about. And he certainly does not have the Jonathan Taylor talent, which I feel even more confident
That's the issue. It's not that it's like playing Cam Akers. But with Cam Akers, you could at least say, well, Cam Akers was kind of really a prospect and he catches some fat. It's like there's just none of that there with Sermon. None of it.
Right. And like Taylor adds a lot. Like you watch like his rushing games, like now granted, Sermon will probably have lighter boxes than Taylor because they won't give him quite the same level of attention. But he's not going to be value adding as much on his runs. The other big elephant in the room is that I think Anthony Richardson does play, but it's not for sure. And if Flacco plays, then every Colt except for Alec Pierce just becomes an infinitely better play. Like now you can add, now Sermon goes from 15 carries, 2 targets to 14 carries, 5 targets. And, you know, Pittman and Downs become excellent values.
Downs is like the play of the week if Flacco plays.
Yeah. And
Not
unclickable
really
at 15% ownership, 5.1 if it's Richardson. Like I don't think people can possibly overestimate just how different of plays Josh Downs and Michael Pittman are. Like Richardson sails a quick out by 10 feet every single game, and people are like, why does I'm people, but people are like, why do they keep calling quick outs? The reason is you can't call slants because he would airmail that by 10 yards and then the safety would catch it. At least when you call a quick out, it just goes into the front row harmlessly. So like I don't know what routes Josh Downs runs that you're willing to call with a quarterback who can't throw within 10 feet of a receiver. Because all of his receptions,
curls,
you could maybe get away with curls, but like what the whole Josh Downs thesis is you motion him into the slot, get him on a linebacker, and he runs an option route. But like Anthony Richardson's not going to be throwing option routes. Like get out of here. That's just not what he does. He throws 50-yard passes to Alec Pierce, and he throws interceptions. Those are the 2 types of throws he can throw.
I still believe. I we did that Dynasty show last week or 2 weeks ago, and we were all kind of selling, and I was like, I think the sentiment has gone too far. And we can talk more about that on a show where it's more appropriate. All right, well, we're gonna get to save some time here. A game with no plays, the New England Patriots against the Miami Dolphins. I suppose you could just say anytime Tyreek Hill is going to be 2% owned on a DFS slate, I could be quarterbacking him, and because Huntley did almost hit him for what would have been like an 85-yard touchdown, he just missed. Maybe A-Chain at 9%, absolutely not. I think that'll end up being wrong. I think this is like early week stuff where you kind of have to level it off. I think A-Chain ends up being more like 5%.
Maybe we should start him over Jordan Whittington if he's going to be 9% at 7.2.
He looks a little banged up, but
yeah,
he looks a little banged up. But then they were also calling like him as like a lead blocker on plays for Jalen Wright. So like those 2 things are incongruous. What I would say is no chance am I playing Ramondre after Gerard Mayo said he might get benched.
But would you play Gibson?
Well, I'd like him to. I'd like to, but he's 5,100. Like I think Gibson would have been a pretty cool play if he was Akers priced, like when Akers was 4,300. But
yeah,
and like the rest of these guys, like I'm not playing a Patriot. I'm not playing Hunter Henry. Well, maybe Hunter Henry. I don't know, but like, yeah, it's just this is a game where if Mike McDaniel doesn't find a way to put some points on the board, I think the seat of his chair starts to get warm.
How many months of rent do you think is reasonable to put on the under in this game? I got it at 36 and a half. It's down to 35 and a half.
You know,
Any.
So the final 2 drives that the Dolphins had before Tyler Huntley took that awful safety, it looked like McDaniel finally figured out what to do, which was just get one of the 3 guys, Tyreek, Waddle, or A-Chain, in a little bit of space, just a little bit, and try and let them play fast.
That is what they got to do. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't think that there's a DFS play in this game though.
No.
Like you can't play Tyreek or Waddle, right? Like that just is like
if I was 150 maxing, if I was a milli maker player, I would want to have like 5 Tyreek teams or something. But in the stuff that I play, it's just too fancy. All right. I actually find this matchup fascinating. The Cleveland Browns against the Washington Commanders, because we kind of get the unstoppable object versus the stopper. Like the Browns defense is supposed to be very good.
First good defense they've played.
Good defense they've played. I'm a little hesitant to just like be like, all right, Jaden Daniels is him. Let's just and now you're always protected by the rushing, because even against a good defense, he can rush. What I'm more into, assuming that this Wednesday non-practice with the knee thing is playing Brian Robinson Jr., even assuming that Eckler does play. Brian Robinson Jr. has an elite fantasy role, like elite fantasy role. He's getting a bunch of goal line stuff. He's getting used in the passing game. The thesis of playing with a mobile quarterback, opening the running lanes, is like 1,000,000,000% hitting for him. I'm all over it. I am also, Jacob, I'm not a member of the Play Amari Cooper every week and just get there when it hits. It almost super hit last week. There's just like a group of DFS players.
Should have hit. He dropped a ball like 30 yards downfield, and there was the phantom hold. Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, relative chalk.
Terry McLaurin at 21% ownership.
That'll filter down. He'll end up. The thing is he's just so paired. He's just so paired with Daniels' ownership.
Yeah, makes sense. I'd like to play. I mean, I'd like to play the Browns side of this because I don't like the Washington defense. They pass a lot. They play fast. They're probably going to play from behind. I don't know how to access that. I think Njoku, if Njoku gets active, I think he's a really fun play. He might just be like the tight end 1 the rest of the season in this spot.
Wow, gave up on Bowers so fast. You saw like 2 weird games and you just gave up on Brock Bowers. Sad.
No, he's in the mix. He's in the mix for sure. And then is Chubb going to actually play this week, or do we get one more week of Jerome Ford? Because now we've gotten 2 weeks of him having the role after it kind of got wonky in week 2. Like if he's going to be half the ownership of DeAndre Swift in a pretty similar role also in a great matchup, I think he's kind of interesting here at 5.8 as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not for me.
All right.
I think Njoku, Daniels, Brian Robinson Jr. are kind of my options here.
Jerry Jeudy?
No, absolutely not. That's like I just kind of have some guys I'm blind to. Like when I go through and do my stuff every single week, and Jeudy is a guy that I'm relatively blind to. It really wouldn't surprise me if this is the first real struggle game for Daniels. If he throws a bad interception, takes a couple bad sacks, like whatever. It's a very good defense. I know that they're just hilarious. Like the team is just hilarious. They lose in these awful ways every single week, but like they have a lot of very good players. They stop the run very well, which is like, so that's pretty difficult when you're doing this Cliff Kingsbury thing. And, there's been this revisionist history that like, oh, Cliff has totally opened it up. He's not horizontal Cliff anymore. How many intended air yards throws over 20 yards do you think Daniels has thrown through 4 games?
I suspect few.
8. So it's not the wide open air raid, we're calling mesh every time, and Daniels has the freedom to throw it to McLaurin 90 yards down the field if he wants to. None of this is, I'm not insulting Jaden Daniels. I'm not telling you not to play Jaden Daniels. I don't know if this is the spot to play Daniels into ownership, basically.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I actually, this might not get me invited on the show next week, but I actually think the other quarterback in this game is the better play.
So there also is a group of DFS players every single week who say this every week. Like you think,
I haven't done it yet this year. This will be the first time I play it this year. I just think the matchup, the pace up, like both these teams play fast. Cleveland's going to have a high pass rate.
Yeah.
Great matchup.
I believe they're 6%
He actually
PROE.
played. He actually, like, do you want to guess who was PFF's highest graded quarterback last week?
That seems stunning because his advanced numbers are so bad.
Well, they were very bad previous to last week. And then the issue is that his advanced numbers look worse because he had an 80-yard touchdown removed based on a holding penalty that didn't exist.
It was a hold. It was a hold. You got to see the second angle. You got to get the film from the grassy knoll.
Well, and then another issue is that he had an interception on what should have been a 35-yard completion that hit Amari Cooper directly in the chest, volleyed 10 feet up into the air and into a defender's arms. So,
to be fair,
Watson
he is
horrible. But last week he was good. That's all I'm saying.
He is almost better than Jacoby Brissett in EPA plus CPOE composite. So he's
better
there.
than Anthony Richardson and Trevor Lawrence, apparently. So that's tough.
Good. Yeah, it is. It is fairly tough.
Anyway, for the record, I'm not using last week to be like he's back. I don't think he's ever coming back. More so just that he's not so bad that he's capable of having one-off decent games every once in a while. And
he could theoretically like run 2 touchdowns in a game.
Yeah.
And at 5,300 at total non-chalk with Cooper, like, yes, obviously directionally I see where you're going and I have no issue with it. It's just like, even in a 10-game slate with some ugly games, I still don't really know if I can get there. Speaking
very fair
of the aforementioned ugly games, the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to play at the Denver Broncos. There is one player from this game that I will consider an NFL DFS, and that is Brock Bowers. Not playing Jacoby Myers. Well, actually, no. Let me respeak. $4,100 Trey Tucker, very good play.
Yeah.
They're using him.
Trey Tucker.
So there was this interesting thing that the Browns were doing, and by interesting, I mean stupid, where they were so worried about him beating them for a deep ball, despite Gardner Minshew like not wanting to do that they were giving him like 11 yards of space, and he was just like, I think he had 3 receptions in their first 4 drives, like just on curls. Like he would pretend like he was going to run the 9 route, and then just turn around. Minshew would lock it in. He scored a rushing touchdown, which is and then I thought he scored another one, but it was DJ Turner. I think Trey Tucker wears 16, Turner wears 19. So they're scheming some stuff up for him. I'm not doing Javonte. I can't possibly. Even if he's a good play.
I will.
Maybe I will. The usage is pretty good. Estime is not back yet.
It's going to depend on the Sunday morning P-own percentage for me. If that 14% is real, I'm not going to play him into 14% ownership.
It's pretty real because he's the only cheap guy.
Yeah. So if that is the case, then no, just because I don't think the ceiling is very high and we've seen a very low floor. But if that gets under 10, then I would be down.
Sure. I mean, Gretsch wrote a great takedown of the Javonte Williams haters this week.
Yes.
Like basically pointing out that it is insane to be like, Tyler Bidet was going to be the lead runner in this backfield, and then pointing out like, well, it's pretty insane. Javonte is like usage-wise, like if you could just strip down all the efficiency stuff and not know who he plays for, you'd be like, well, that guy's like a top 15 running back in fantasy. The usage is still pretty good. I don't know. Can he score a touchdown? Can he score 2 touchdowns? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's tough. But Bowers is the one. Bowers is the one where he's 5,500. People are out on him. He was blocking too much last week. I gotta believe that the Raiders are efficient enough to self-scout and realize that, like, yeah, sure, Bowers is a good blocker, but he probably should be getting 6 targets a game minimum the way he was the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, that's the hope. I get a little bit nervous with tight ends that are the focal point of the defense. Like I really liked having Devontae Adams there, and I'm not quite as in love with the current iteration of this Raiders offense for Brock Bowers, but I agree he's totally in play at 5.5 at not a lot of ownership.
What if Mayer plays? Does that do anything for you one way or the other?
I mean, it's worse, right? But Harrison Bryant kind of
so like I was going to say I don't know. Because Mayer is such a blocker. Mayer is much more of the inline blocking type.
But he takes some of his routes in 11 too.
Yeah, he does. All right. A good game. A good game in the afternoon here. The Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. I'm very close to selling my Cardinal stock, like at the absolute bottom. Like pretty close to doing it. The one thing that is keeping me in it, well, not the one thing. It's just I would hate to do the absolute bottom and then see the thesis of the things I believed all offseason play out here against the 49ers. Like, Kyler is not getting outside of the pocket. I don't know why that is. They also, I think, pretty clearly missed Trey McBride last week because he's their only efficient middle of the field player.
Back this week.
Yeah, and he's a very good player. The Cardinals also lose a ton on their offense when they have no threat of the run. Like when the defense basically just gives you 5 yards per carry, their passing game goes to 0. So any kind of competitive game, I think Kyler's got more in the locker. And I don't know. The 49ers have like a billion plays. Like Mason is, I think, pretty good chalk, honestly. Debo is like the play of plays. He had no limitations last week, this Cardinals defense. I mean, like, just imagine a world where the Cardinals find a way to get up 10-0 here. Like it could just be rocket ships for like every player.
Yeah. Man, 37% projected ownership for 7.4K. Jordan Mason is pretty crazy. Like
he's still really not getting used in the passing game.
He's now just like borderline Barkley price, but we're still going to play him 37%. I'm not going to do that because he's not getting used in the passing game. And I get it. He's going to have 2 touchdowns and he's going to have 30 points and whatever else. But it does just kind of feel like an inertia thing where it's like, well, he keeps getting there. So
he keeps getting there.
But like, it just doesn't make sense for. I'm not saying he's badly priced. He's correctly priced. It's just like it doesn't actually make any sense to play a running back who every week has the exact same role, and that role is 20 carries and 2 targets at 37% ownership at 7,400. Like that's just not. It's not reasonable. So I won't play him, and he will get there. I will play Debo. I'm fucking sick and tired of Brandon Ayuk. I'm tired of this bullshit, and I'm gonna come over to your side of the fence this week and stop playing this guy finally. And who else? Yeah, I think the McBride thing makes a lot of a difference because one of the keys to this Cardinals offense since the second half of last year is they not just the threat of the run, but also setting up explosive plays out of big personnel formations, out of 12 and even out of 13. And when they don't have McBride, it's hard to credibly pass from 13 personnel when your 13 personnel is like Elijah Higgins, Tip Ryman, and whatever guy they elevated for the practice squad. So I think getting McBride back is going to be big for this offense. And then Harrison, 7.5K is probably what? Like 42% chance to outscore Jordan Mason at the exact same salary. And yeah, he I think is a totally viable play because San Francisco, as good as they are as a team, that's probably still their weak point. It's a secondary. So I'm open to doing the Kyler Harrison play here in a fun game environment at low ownership, and then just probably bringing it back with Deebo Samuel.
You ready for me to drop a take you're not expecting?
Yeah. Are you in on Ayuk?
Well, I mean, Ayuk is just categorically a very good DFS play. It's a play that, like, if you over-index for people who are long-term GPP winning players, they will have more Ayuk than the field this week. I think Purdy doubles totally in play. Purdy, Ayuk, Debo, Purdy and Kittle and Debo, Purdy and Kittle and Ayuk, Purdy, Mason, Kittle, like whatever permutation you'd like.
Yeah.
They're the highest team total of the week, but no one ever really wants to play Brock. Like it's just kind of like, Brock Purdy. I will also say my amateur film watcher take here is like he looks way, way better than when people were talking about him getting MVP votes before. Like he's really playing well. He's like getting out of the pocket. He's running around. He's like the Rams loss, I think, is covering up that he is playing pretty well. I think Purdy doubles on a Thursday morning might be my preferred like number one way to build right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that take. I think this is the best Purdy's ever played. This is the first time that I've started to wonder if he's not entirely a scam. So shout out to Brett.
He's definitely not entirely a scam. It's okay, kind of neither here nor there for this show, but he's definitely not entirely a scam. All right, what you do with this game will probably decide how much money you win this week. We have the Green Bay Packers.
Well, I think everyone that watches this show knows what we're gonna do with this game.
It's really something to just have total chalk on my favorite player in the NFL potentially right now. We have a team total of 26 for the Green Bay Packers, a team total of 23 for the Los Angeles Rams. Kyren Williams is 7,600. I think I would rather play Kyren Williams than Jordan Mason, given the discrepancy and how they're owned. We have got last week's hero, Jaden Reed, priced at 6,500, projected for 16.2 points, 13% ownership. Jordan Love looks fairly strong. Josh Jacobs looks fairly strong, but I won't really be playing Josh Jacobs. I mean, imagine playing Josh Jacobs for 6,400 when you can simply play Dontavian Wicks priced at 5,000. Wicks is definitely the one that I am most into. Not going to surprise anyone. He had 13 targets last week. The drops are not great for Dontavian Wicks, but I have to put that in the category of I don't really care. He had some drops last season, but I wouldn't say it's like a big part of his game. Atwell is a fairly interesting bringback right now. Making sure I've the rotogrinders projections have him for about 12 points. Would not be surprised to see Atwell end up being like relative bring back chalk here. Whittington, just based on the need of the slate, the dude is 4,600. He was just straight up in the Cooper Kupp role last week. How much is too much from this game? Are you double stacking Love? Are you using a bring back? How happy are we to play Dontavian Wicks? Like what just break it down for me.
Well, this ownership is egregious. I don't want to ever speak poorly on Cardi, but he clearly is not factored
this is
the
just
cult
the
of Dontavian Wicks into the ownership.
No, this is the early Thursday run. This isn't even Cardi's. This is just the blank. I'm sure Dan did this probably at noon on Wednesday. It'll be updated.
Okay, because Dontavian Wicks, especially in small field tournaments, what do you think we flip the cards over and see on Dontavian?
Dontavian Wicks in the Spy, which 32? Is the Spy is like the Slappy tournament. Like everyone who listens to this probably plays the Spy. Dontavian Wicks will be.
I'll play Wicks in the Spy.
He will be 35% owned in those contests minimum,
and I'll be part of the 35. This is like the week that Albert O was chalk for me, where it's like, should I do this? No.
Alberto scored. Alberto scored a touchdown the week he was chalk.
Yeah, but like, have I been waiting my whole life to do this? Yes. Like, who would I be if I don't play Dontavian Wicks? So really, it's just how else do I get around this in my lineups is the only question. So, I mean, Wicks plus Whittington is probably a little too slappy correlated, even though good plays.
What about Love double? Love, Wicks, Kraft, Atwell.
See, that's fun, right? That's the kind of stuff I think you got to do because, like, if you go Love, Reid, Wicks, Whittington, there's almost no way to build a lineup because, like, you're eating so much ownership, and then you have the exact same salary left as everybody else who's built that lineup, and it's just going to make it really difficult. Like, you almost have to play bad plays around that. So I think that's probably the way to do it. Is you can pick one of Reid or Wicks. You play Kraft, and then you pick a Ram that's not Whittington, or Kyren. I guess that's probably the move.
Kyren versus Mason. Kyren versus Mason. You can only have
Kyren.
one.
Like Kyren, clearly he is when they get inside the 5, they always give it to Kyron. They give it to Mason pretty often, but they might do like an end around to Debo. They might just pass. There's other things.
They do not give it to him at the frequency to which Kyron gets the ball for sure.
Yeah, like Kyron always gets the goal line carries. He also not used that often in the passing game, but he's used more often in the passing game than Mason. And that's basically the same in terms of no other running back ever gets a touch. So it's Kyron for me. And then, every single Packer is a good play, I guess, except for, I don't really know why Josh Jacobs is projecting for all this ownership. He's Emmanuel Wilson's backup.
It's a salary thing. It really is just a salary thing. Like there's not really anyone else in that range who projects for like 15 or 16. And, I bet Sunday morning Sims are going to give you some good Jacobs teams because it will be leverage. It'll leverage off of Wicks. And,
and Reid.
Let's just pretend I'm Mike Leone for a second here. Pretend a very serious
Romeo
person
Dobbs.
is giving you
Yeah.
Dobbs is when you look up the definition of how do I leverage off all these dipshit slappies who want to play fantasy football. Romeo Dobbs is the picture you see.
Agreed. That is the right play. Everyone 100% should play Romeo Dobbs. I'm not going to do it, to be clear.
Not a chance.
That is the correct play that you should be making. This is maybe just a macro take, but as we're getting through all these games, what I'm realizing is that basically every single running back that I'm seeing in the 10 to 17% range, I'm like, wow, what a horrible play that
What a horrible play.
So clearly it's not a good running back week, which makes sense.
I was going to say, is this the return of wide receiver in the flex?
Hall's not with us. So wide receiver in the flex is a thing this week. In all my lineups, I think. And then also, clearly there's a lot of running backs that should be 8% owned that are going to be 16% owned, which means you may as well just play the 4% owned because Javonte is going to be more owned than he's worthy of being. Jacobs is going to be more owned than he's worthy of being. Swift, all these kind of guys are just getting dragged up where it's kind of like the usual third tier of running backs are going to be the second tier of running backs. So to me, that means either you just eat it and you just play Kyron Williams, who's an actual good play, or you just really punt it off and pick some random running back who projects,
Trey Sermon
worse than the other guys. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's do the final game, which just sadly is going to be, we're going to get let down. We have the New York Giants traveling to play on the West Coast against the Seattle Seahawks. So the issue is Neighbors is not going to play. And the New York Giants without Neighbors, he leads the NFL in target share. He leads the NFL in first read target share. The Wandale PPR scam, you might be thinking, oh, no. Neighbors. The PPR scam is going to be scamming. I sadly think Neighbors is kind of the key to the PPR scam.
Well, I don't know. I read on Twitter that Wandale eats first. Wandale is the
classic J-Mac tweet.
Wandale is the constant. He was going to get his no matter what. Neighbors is superfluous. So I think Wandale might be a really good pick this week.
I tell you what, if JSN is really 15%, no chance I play him. I think the much more accurate will be you move that 15% to Metcalf and you move JSN down to 8 or 9. He's pretty bad in the separation stuff right now, the open score and everything. I got to say, watching him, that feels weird to me that he wouldn't rate well in those, especially because we just have seen Lockett go down in target share and in usage so much. Here's my flag plant play. Kenneth Walker III, $6,800. That is my gold star lock of the week. Kenneth Walker is my favorite GPP running back play. The one thing I'd be concerned about. We've seen this a ton.
Why isn't he 30% owned? He's
so that's exactly
better than Josh Jacobs.
That is exactly it. We see this every week. Ownership is kind of flat on the non-cash game running backs. But then you turn the cards over and the guy who's the fourth highest projected running back, who's kind of the fancy play, which is what Walker is because he doesn't really catch passes.
Yeah.
He ends up being 31% owned in the SPY because, I can't play Mason at 31%. So I'm going to play Walker at 21%. But honestly, I don't even really care. I really don't even care about that. I'm just jamming Kenneth Walker.
Yep. I agree. I think you're just kind of getting it for free. Like I said, every running back is bad this week. So I'd be perfectly happy just playing Kenneth Walker under the assumption he's 25% owned. And if that happens to be incorrect, then bonus. So I like Walker this week. Also, Devin Singletary seems legitimately questionable. Would really be nice for the slate if we got like a cheap Tyrone Tracy chalk to flip this thing on its head.
They said this morning that he's got a pretty good chance to play. And Singletary, by the way, would be your classic doesn't need to practice to play guy.
Yeah,
like
if
he wants to play on Sunday and is good to go, he's going to play.
Yeah. Agreed there. I also think Metcalf has kind of just got to be in play every week. The role is phenomenal right now.
So the biggest difference between the Seahawks with Waldron and the Seahawks now is basically like Geno is really good at making these tight window throws. So like 5 times a game, he should just throw to Metcalf even when he's not open. And guess what? He's converting those at like a literal 100% clip. Like it is Rodgers Adams-esque kind of how it's just like a long handoff. Like it's really, really impressive stuff. Yeah, I love Metcalf here too.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. That is all of the games. Let's build a lineup, and you are the guest here, so I will let you start.
Well, light the candle, Dontavian Wicks.
Wow, light the candle. Light the candle is a very good way to say that Dontavian Wicks just scored a touchdown. I really like that. You know what? Let's just go ahead and do my idea. Let's do Purdy, and I will allow you to do what you want at the wide receiver, but I will take George Kittle. So we're gonna have to save somewhere. Right. We are gonna have to play someone gross, but I'm gonna take George Kittle.
Okay. I will. Let's see here.
We got all the way through and we like barely talked about tight ends. That's how miserable the position is.
All right, I'm a little worried about salary crunching us here. So okay, if we're gonna play, I think that we're actually kind of off the ownership here so far, and we're gonna need to save
with Purdy and Kittle. We could play whoever we want. We don't have to care.
Eat it a little bit here, and we'll play Whittington with Wicks, and then hopefully get us some salary savings.
Yeah. I wonder. Just as we went through that slate and we kind of talked about a ton of these running backs, I think there are enough names, and I think Hubbard has gotten to a salary range now where he's not like a jam. Once you get that 6 in front of the salary, it does change it. All right, we have $5,600 left per slot. We don't have a defense selected, so we don't have to do total scrubs.
All right, I'll put in my gold star play of the week, Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. All right, Brian Thomas Jr. I'm gonna get our defense out of the way. Panthers defense against Caleb. No disrespect. No disrespect intended to Caleb Williams, but maybe disrespect intended to Shane Waldron, actually, assuredly. Okay. What do we do? Do we do Mason or do we do Kyron? I guess. That's kind of interesting. On a Purdy team.
Right.
I don't know which one. Let's do James Cook.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I like that.
And we have $7,200 left at flex now.
That's actually more than Debo, right? Who's 72? Anyone?
Debo is 68, so we can spend up a defense. We could do Jaden Reed, spend way up at defense, or we could just do Debo.
Let's just do Debo, and then we'll spend up a little bit here at defense.
All right, we will do Debo Samuel, who obviously is my preferred option here. This lineup has $2,800 left at defense. You know, I don't know. This might be. I don't know if this would sim that well. It might be. The Browns defense. There's your fight back against the Slappies. Play of the week. Yeah. Oh my God. Browns defense against a 13% owned Jaden Daniels. So
nice. Lineup.
Purdy with Kittle and Debo, wide receiver in the flex. No Kyron, no Mason. Hubbard and Cook as the running backs, Wicks, Whittington, Brian Thomas Jr., and the Browns defense. That, I'm going to guess, sim's okay. Not going to sim great, mostly because of the Cook's play, the James Cook. The solvers and optos are just not going to be super into him. I like that build, though. Yeah, I think Purdy is where I'm landing. All right, let's do our gold star plays. Yours is Brian Thomas Jr. Elaborate on that. Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. Been awesome. 2.34 yards per route run, only 0.01 behind Malik Neighbors. He is trending towards a threshold of rookie season where basically only superstar wide receivers emanate from. Just coming off of his 2 highest target domination games in the last 2 weeks, and gets the matchup of all matchups with just by a mile the worst outside cornerbacks in the league. We just saw Pickens. We should have had a touchdown, but fumbled on the 1 yard line, but still went easily up over 100 yards. Rome Odunze dusted this team playing from the outside 2 weeks ago. Nico Collins in week 1. It's just every single week with the Indianapolis Colts. They just give it up. And he's a great player. So very into Brian Thomas. And also the wide receiver position right now is so saturated this week with guys like Wicks getting a lot of hype, and Whittington and all these other dudes, that I don't think you're going to have to pay up that much for Thomas, where in a weaker wide receiver week, this would be kind of the play that I think a lot of people would all be gravitating towards in this matchup.
All right, I will. I'll be saying the line Bart with Deebo Samuel. I mean, my God, non-chalk Deebo Samuel at home to the Arizona Footballing Cardinals when his teammate running back. I mean, imagine how poetic it is. Sunday afternoon, you've got a good team, you're cooking. Cards turn over. Deebo Samuel's 8% owned in the SPY. Jordan Mason is 43% owned. It's the fourth quarter. They're up 10 points. They're going to cap off a drive. Jordan Mason, they fake a handoff. Purdy pitches it to Deebo. Deebo walks in the end zone untouched to score his 3rd touchdown of the day. It's beautiful. Deebo Samuel is my gold star DFS play of the week.
Nice.
It's beautiful. All right, guys, that is going to do it here for thinking about DFS. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to Jacob's newsletter. Make sure that you are reading the Hitchhiker's Guide. Make sure that you're reading the Streamer's Guide. Some very good, directionally accurate advice from Thinking About Thinking this most recent week. Make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. And Jacob and I will be back with all of you next week.